This lunar eclipse in Virgo is going to be kicking off the eclipse season for 2025, starting about some fated, karmic, destined changes that are going to be changing the parts of our chart that rule Virgo and Pisces for the next 2 years. Eclipses are pretty much supercharged new and full moons, and this one is a supercharged full moon total lunar eclipse that's going to be affecting us in really positive ways, but that may not always feel so good in the moment. Full moons are about releasing, they're about letting go. And Virgo is about refinement and figuring out what fits and what doesn't. So when we have those two energies come together, we get this purification of whatever part of our chart holds Virgo. There's something that needs to be decreased, that needs to be purified. Pluto is in gate 41 in human design, and gate 41 is the gate of decrease. It's going to be here for a long time, but the energy of Pluto in gate 41 is how do we do more with less? And so whatever Virgo is in your chart, we're starting this process. It started earlier this year, but you're really going to be starting to feel the effects now of how can I do more with less? And in order to have less, we have to let go. And yes, this is a full moon, so there is going to be some level of culmination around things that were started back in September of last year. The new moon in Virgo was on September 2nd. In the middle of the month, we did have a lunar eclipse in Pisces, but the nodes had not yet shifted into this axis yet. They were still in Aries and Libra. So it still kind of counts. So I would say something that was began in September of last year, themes that came up in September of last year, around the Virgo part of your chart, but also in some way Pisces, right? Because the opposition, which is a full moon, is when the sun and moon are opposed. And with the eclipse, that means they're landing with the nodal axis, which are also oppositions, the south node and the north node. Oppositions and the houses that they entail always kind of have something to do with one another. You've heard me say this often if you've been on my channel. I don't think we have 12 signs or 12 houses. We have 6 pairs. Especially when we look at houses, it's really important to look at what's happening in the opposite house. And so full moons are a great way of doing that, because another part of full moons is there's generally a call for balance, but balance seems more difficult because the moon is full and the emotions are heightened, specifically with this one, because in the human design, we have the emotional center that is being lit up, and it has been for a long time. So when the full moon comes about, it's already heightened emotions, but collectively we are all feeling extra emotional anyways, and so it kind of lends to being a time where we really need to just chill. That's my best advice during these times, during full moons in general, but specifically when the nodes are involved, because the nodes bring an extra significance to destiny, to karma, to fate, to turnarounds, unexpected things. It's almost like Uranus, but a little bit different. They could feel shocking, or they could feel like a bigger loss than normal, right? Because if we think about it, full moons and new moons are such a beautiful way to track our lives and to track the astrology and see what's happening in the sky. But they happen every month, right? So it's not like every single time something massive is going to shift in your life. It depends on your chart specifically, and if they are combined with the lunar nodes, then it's going to give an extra oomph for everybody, but you have to look at your chart. So if you have anything around 23, I would say 22 to 24 specifically, those degrees of Virgo, this is going to be affecting you strongly. And you can look at your progressed sun, moon, and rising as well to see, or your progressed chart to see if that's a point that you have there, because you may not see it in your natal chart, but if it affects you really intensely, then it might be your progressed chart that's being affected. Or if you have anything around those degrees of any points or planets, specifically if they're mutable signs. So Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Gemini, those people are going to be affected more strongly by this lunar eclipse specifically. Because this is a south node lunar eclipse, it's going to have an extra emphasis on releasings, endings, letting go, detaching, because that's what the South Node represents. So you're seeing a theme here, right? It's a full moon, which is already about those things. South Node is more about those things. And Virgo is also, Virgo and Pisces have to do with relinquishing control in the sense that Virgo likes order, it likes structure, it likes to be practical. The sixth house rules systems. So like I said earlier, Virgos are really good at looking at something and seeing this doesn't fit, this does fit, what stays, what goes. And so inevitably things have to go. And with Pisces, it's the ultimate surrender, right? I talked about that a lot with my previous video on the new moon in Pisces, that it's letting go completely and allowing life to move with you rather than you versus life. Like it's you guys coming together and seeing that co-creation. And so often we hear about Virgo having these characteristics of being a little neurotic, or they like to kind of take control of things because they're really good with the details. See, with Virgo, the mind is very strong. And so as we know, the mind is so great to be of service to other people, and Virgo is such a sign of service, so is Pisces. But Virgo gives it in a very practical way and often uses the mind in some ways. So that's why I say like certain Virgo placements can be really good for managing people, or, even being like accountants or pharmacists even, because there's a lot of attention to details. And so this is an amazing way of being of service, whereas Pisces tends to be more of like, I'll sit here with you through the pain. It's a little bit more soul-centered. But once again, if we look at these two as oppositions, which they are, and rather than seeing them as Virgo is neurotic and wants control and Pisces just wants to surrender, and see that they actually have a lot in common within those themes, and they can learn so much from one another to become more balanced. So when we have the Sun, Saturn, Neptune, and the North Node still in the sign of Pisces opposing the moon in Virgo, both of these signs are indicated. It's just the emphasis is more on Virgo, right? Because this lunar eclipse is happening in Virgo. But we still have to look at these Piscean themes and how can we allow both of these to come together? Because in a way, like I said, when Virgo refines through removing, through purification, right? It's Virgo is a sign of the Virgin, and one of the things that I see so often with Virgo is their ability to purify, to bring things down to the essence. I mean, originally Virgos in a lot of ways, I mean, nowadays I think Virgos are like the number one sign for entrepreneurs, apparently. I see that more with Virgo men, but it can happen for Virgo women as well, for sure. But I also feel like Virgo is the quintessential healer, right? She's the purifier. Because of her association to this like pure goodness, and actually the Sabian symbol that leads me perfectly into the Sabian symbol of 24 degrees of Virgo, because it talks about this. There's an innocence in Virgo. There's a more of a purity that's there, and so they can kind of lend this purity to everything around them. And that's why they're so good at having an eye for the details that other people would miss, because they understand that so much of this purification is releasing these little things that we don't recognize day to day practically are taking us away from our goals, are taking us away from our lives and who we want to be. And so Virgo is really good at seeing those things. And so the emphasis during this lunar eclipse is going to be what needs to go that is not allowing the essence of that thing in our lives to be its most purest form, to be the most aligned, right? Because this is Pisces as well. And so this is our spiritual path. When I think of Virgo and the sixth house, I think of alchemists. In my opinion, if you think about alchemy, people often talk about alchemy as being turning lead into gold, but that's a metaphor, right? Because the actual thing that's transformed is the alchemist, is the inner world. And when I think of the association with Virgo and the Hermit card in tarot, it reminds me that this, which is ruled by Virgo, it's this going inward, this inner transformation. And Virgo reminds us that it's inside of us. This is why it's so interesting, because Virgo is a earthy sign, and I definitely feel the earthiness of Virgo, but I also see Virgo as very mystical signs. And actually, one of the nakshatras that is in Virgo in Vedic astrology is Hasta. And Hasta is one of the most spiritually connected nakshatras that I've studied. And so it just brings this sense of mysticism within the practicality. But the emphasis is, how do I use that mysticism in order to become better and be of better service? Right? That's where the emphasis becomes for Virgo. They don't get too lost in the mysticism generally, whereas Pisces, that may be more their thing. Even though they want to be of service as well, these are both signs, and these houses are houses of service and wanting to be there for other people. But Pisces will get more so into the mysticism and relishing in that, versus Virgo that will stay in, how do I then use this mysticism to better my life and the life of the other people surrounding me? So this is what I'm saying. They're so similar, but there's just these different emphases on where they want to use that and how they want to use that and how much of that essence they want to use. So with this lunar eclipse, actually, you know what? Before we get into anything else, let's look at the Sabian symbol. So the Sabian symbol for 24 degrees of Virgo is Mary and her white lamb. The theme is eternal spring. This symbol speaks to a youthful perspective, or to seeing the world through the eyes of a child. The image of Mary and her white lamb symbolizes purity, innocence, trust, receptivity, and an openness to experience. It also has religious undertones in its subtle allusion to Jesus and his mother. The 1953 commentary describes this image in terms of a healthy approach to heaven through a child's wide-eye expectations. The suggestion here is that adults have a responsibility to protect their own innocent expectations, as well as those of children, as they are the earliest awakenings to potential. For the young child, anything and everything is possible, and there are no limitations to realizing a dream or experiencing the wonders of life. Your greatest advantage lies in being open, receptive, and sincere. Expect the best from yourself and others brings positive results. Guard against negative or suspicious thinking. Try not to project problems. At the same time, don't shirk your responsibilities or ignore what needs to be done. So this is kind of the aspect of Virgo that I was emphasizing, is that there is this purity. And one of the things that I love about like children is that amazing potential that's there, that they aren't limited by the practicalities of life. And you just see that in their everyday existence. We live near a school, elementary school, and sometimes I walk past it, and it's just so amazing to watch young children play, and to remember that sense of wonder that you had as a kid. I remember one day I came home and I told my boyfriend, I was like, man, I love living near school and like sitting there and like watching the kids play and just seeing the joy and the innocence, and he was like, yeah, probably don't tell people that you sit there and you look at kids. And I was like, man, I hate that the world thinks like that though, because it's just, there's so much joy and wonder. And I feel like as we get an imagination, and as we get older as adults, we lose contact with that. We're hardened by responsibilities, and we're hardened. And this is like Virgo themes, right? The 6th house is about responsibilities and being responsible. And it even said, like, don't shirk your responsibilities, and responsibilities are important. And that's honestly one of the biggest themes of growing into adulthood. Yet, if we don't remember that sense of wonder and joy in our lives, then all of that responsibility just drains us and our life becomes soulless, right? So once again, we see this polarity between Virgo and responsibility, and Pisces and the soul and spirituality and that path, versus just taking care of our mundane world, which is the 6th house. It's how do we integrate both of them depending on our own charts. The full moon gives us opportunity to do that, right? Like I said, oppositions are about balance. And oppositions are also very relational in nature. They have a Libra-like quality. So a lot of times full moons can push us to engage in conflict, which in this specific full moon especially, because the moon is in gate 6, line 2. Gate 6, hexagram 6, gene key 6 is about conflict or friction, depending on which system you use. So this is something that could be coming up as well. This is something that we often collectively shirk from. When the solar plexus is defined collectively, it's asking us to kind of work the conflict muscle in general, because the solar plexus is about truth and your truth and standing up for your truth. And that means that there is a necessary amount of conflict. So if you have this defined in your body graph in human design, it's very important for you to, and you could, and I always say this, like, nobody loves conflict, right? Like, most sane people don't love conflict, but people who have a defined emotional center or solar plexus in their body graph have an understanding that it needs to happen. And so they're a little bit more at ease with it than people who have it undefined, who will completely avoid confrontation at all costs, generally, especially if it's completely open. Collectively, we struggle with this a lot. We struggle with conflict. And full moons, like I said, especially this one specifically, and the line 2 always has a sense of projection associated to it. So obviously we can always project onto other people, but when the line 2 is indicated on line 5, it's saying, hey, there's an extra emphasis on the opportunity for you to be projecting onto people things that aren't actually true, qualities they don't actually have, and it's actually coming from you and your expectations. So what the Sabian Symbols said, and this is a massive source of conflict in interpersonal relationships, is how much are we expecting out of other people? And this is Virgo as well, right? Virgo has such a keen eye for detail that it can oftentimes come off as more critical because it sees what doesn't fit, right? And so it's a desire to improve the system or the person, but oftentimes it becomes very critical and the other person doesn't like that because it seems like they're always being criticized. So let's see what the Gene Keys has to say about this, because in the Gene Keys, the shadow is conflict and the gift is diplomacy and the city, or the highest expression, is peace. He says a lot of amazing things here. This is one of my favorite books. If you guys don't have this, I have it linked in my description, but if you're familiar with Gene Keys or human design, yeah, I just love this book. But he says that the 6th shadow of conflict is the single most influential gene key in regard to the issue of human communication. This conflict stems from the emotional system and our inability to handle the voltage of extreme emotional states. Conflict breaks out whenever 2 or more people agree to identify with their emotional state. As long as you surrender your will to the emotional system, you will be trapped by its volatile nature. This is very much in alignment with many frameworks that talk about, honoring the emotional experience without becoming its slave. He says that your emotional defense strategies are primarily laid down during your second 7-year cycle of life, from the age of 7 to 14, as you navigate puberty. Because as we know, during that time, the emotions become very volatile and internally, and if we don't have a good support system to deal with those emotions, then we don't learn how to navigate conflict. And I would say that's probably the majority of us, right? If you had somebody in your life, parent, mentor, or someone who during those ages specifically, but really ever, taught you how to really deal with conflict, you are very lucky, because most adults in our lives at that time period didn't know how to deal with conflict themselves either, right? They were just figuring out life as well. There are 2 ways that we can see this come out, and this is kind of the nuance that I was saying about in relationships. So some people can become overly attentive by suppressing their own desires, their own truth, and abandoning themselves in order to maintain peace. This is also not correct, okay? These are like people pleasers. And then the other one he says are tactless. So these people always are finding themselves in difficult emotional situations, which they make worse by giving vent to their anger and then projecting it on others. He pretty much says, like something that I say here a lot, when you're able to see and own your own unconscious projections, you rupture the collective shadow patterns of conflict. That in order to have this gift of diplomacy, you have to be willing to open your heart to one another. And this is more so a Piscean trait rather than a Virgoan trait. And so this is where Virgos can really draw upon that Pisces 7th house, their opposing sign. And I'm saying this collectively, right? Like it's not just for Virgos. I'm just saying, I'm using Virgo as an archetype. So no matter what signs you have in your chart, this is the theme that's coming up collectively for us. It's through conflict. And the thing about Venus retrograde too that we have during this time, and we didn't even talk about the fact that Mercury, the ruler of this moon, is stationing to go retrograde during this time. It's going to go retrograde on the 15th, so just a day after. But Venus retrograde is a time when increased disharmony occurs, and it allows us to see how much disharmony can we tolerate in order to have a renewed sense of balance and harmony, right? In some ways, that's what it's bringing to our attention. And obviously it depends on where this is happening in your chart, which I talked about in my Venus retrograde video, but regardless of where it is, Venus still rules relationships, finances, values, desire. So those things for everybody are under contemplation. It's just happening in different areas of our lives and to different extent, depending on your sign. So with all this in mind and knowing that Mercury is really strong, right? When planet stations, it gets really, really strong. And interestingly enough, during the new moon in Virgo we had in September of 2024, Mercury was stationing to go direct. So both times it's been a very strong theme of Virgo and the mind and Mercury and details and logic, when the other aspect of this is to make sure that we are not overutilizing those things in our lives, especially within relationships. That's where I feel like that really critical mind and that is so useful in helping others in interpersonal relationships when it's not asked for, when it's, something that, I think that's the biggest thing is when it's not asked for is what starts the breakdown of relationships through contempt. Saturn is sitting with the sun and it's opposing this moon. And during the the new moon in Virgo last fall, Saturn was opposing the sun and the moon. So Saturn has been connecting this theme of responsibility, of maturity, and it could be doing that through pain and suffering, but ultimately, especially with Saturn and Pisces, it's because it wants alignment. But with Saturn, the way that we learn from Saturn is generally through pain and recognizing that pain, what lessons and how can we grow through the pain that Saturn offers us. The last thing that we'll discuss is the tarot card reading that I did. So I got the 9 of Cups and the 4 of Cups as the theme of this, okay? So cups, emotions, right? To a different degree as well, you could say creativity and maybe even spirituality. I would say more so creativity. But relationships are very emotional, right? And how we relate to other people. So it doesn't have to be a one-on-one partnership, right? This is friendship, business partners, family, friends, your neighbor. Like that's what relationships are. It's not just a romantic partner. When I see these two come together, it's so interesting because the 4 of Cups is about contemplation and going inward because you are dissatisfied. And the 9 of Cups is the wish card. It's like this ultimate emotional satisfaction. And the third decan of Virgo, where this moon is happening, is ruled by the 10 of Pentacles. And Susan Chang says this of the 10 of Pentacles, which I think is kind of fitting. This may imply that there is an acquired wealth, right? Because the 10 of Pentacles is often seen as like the ultimate accrual of material possessions, or you achieved a goal, a financial goal, a career goal, a money goal, something like that. And it's like abundance, right? You're feeling very, very abundant. But she says that it may imply that the acquired wealth, being inert, will be dissipated unless put to further use by devoting its power to objects other than mere accumulation. So it's essentially saying that you've worked so hard and you've gotten to a point of you've achieved this, and you may even have money and finances and resources, and yet if we hoard it, this is kind of where we start feeling that dissatisfaction come through. So for some of us, this could be happening with finances, sure. Like I said, it really depends on where we have Virgo in our chart, so we'll talk about that with all signs. There's a couple of possible feelings that we may be having right now. One is that we've reached this point where we should be happy about something, you know, like things have been going well, or you've achieved some sort of a goal, right? Because this is a full moon, this is a culmination of effort. And yet you may be feeling as though it's not, to this current version of yourself, it's no longer correct. And you're feeling dissatisfied with it, even though you feel like you should be excited about it. And you're saying, okay, let's go within. And the other thing is maybe you did achieve something and it does still align with your values, but it didn't bring the same level of contentment that you had hoped. And now you're starting to wonder, is contentment actually an inside job? Is it not actually in achieving the goals that I set? Now, those can definitely bring us joy and happiness and success, and those can feed into contentment. But this is making you feel like you got something that you've wanted for a long time, or that you've worked really hard for, but it's feeling like it didn't really hit the spot, you know? And so now you're in the space of thinking, well, what do I actually want? What actually makes me feel contented? So the advice card that I got was the Magician, and the outcome to that is the Nine of Swords and the Knight of Wands. So when I think about the Magician, it's saying there is an emphasis on action, because this is yang, right? This is number one. And he has the pentacles, the cups, the swords, wands available to him. It's in saying that you have the ability to change your life. You have the ability to create the situation that you desire out of this. So if something's not feeling right, or you're not feeling the way you thought you would, you have to be the one to change it. And you are the only one who ever has the power to change it. And the outcome being the Nine of Swords and the Knight of Wands is really interesting, because it makes me feel like there's a really big theme about destined action right now. And you guys always know that, like, with full moons, it's a heightened emotional time. I don't recommend making life decisions during a full moon. I still don't. But I think this is inspiring in you, this desire to take action towards something and to have courage. That's the big theme right now, because whatever this change is, this destined action is that you have to take, there's a lot of anxiety and fear about it. And this is like kind of where I was talking in the beginning of the video about Virgo having a really strong mind, but they can tend towards anxiety because they have this desire to like mentally know what's happening around them and have a harder time just letting go. And I'm talking about the pure Virgo archetype, right? So obviously you are not a pure Virgo archetype, even if you have like 5 planets in Virgo. But this is saying there needs to be more of a balance between reflection and giving into your anxiety and fears, and being courageous and going after what you want. This is asking for balance on that. So that's what I've got for you guys today. But just some finishing last words. Once again, with full moons, chill, relax, don't do anything crazy on this day. It's super charged. You're charged up. If you're not charged up, somebody else could be charged up. Just relax. Try your best, to stay regulated and move with the changes as they come. And be prepared to release. Be prepared to let go, because ultimately I think that this courage that you're taking even if you're starting something new, you're only being able to do that by releasing something old, because Pluto is negative decrease. And just in general, like I think we're getting to a point where we need to release something before starting something new. And that's becoming very apparent in our lives. So we'll see what part of your chart this is going to be affecting the most in the all signs. I'll see you guys there. For my Aries sun, moon, and rising, for you guys, this lunar eclipse is happening in your 6th house, of work, health, illness, conflict, challenges. This could also be pets, your daily responsibilities, your sense of service. Also, your digestive system is ruled by the 6th house. So something around these themes that was probably began back in September of 2024 is now coming to a close. It's culminated, so it's kind of completed. You're seeing the fruition of something, and you may be realizing that whatever you're seeing, an aspect of that or all of that has to be let go in order for you to fully move into the next step. You guys have a lot of stuff happening in your 12th house. We've been talking about this. The way forward for you is the path of the unknown. And I think in order for you guys to continue on this path, something has to change, whether that's your work environment. So changing something within your environment, changing how you show up to work, the responsibilities that you take at work or at home as well. This could be something that, responsibilities that you're taking at home, because you've got Mars in the 4th house as well. Yeah, maybe that's more of a theme for you guys, is something around changing something internally or at home, but that's going to translate in some way into a practical into something practical, because the 6th house is an earthy house and often has to do about our work. So somehow this ties into work for you guys. Could also be like other things like illness, but maybe you're recognizing that the next step on your journey is going to require you to relinquish some aspect of your job, or maybe your entire job, or maybe you need to change something about it. Or if you're on the spiritual path and you're recognizing that in order to maintain the spiritual path, your day-to-day responsibilities have to change. The things that you do with your day-to-day, the way you take care of your mind-body connection, or your mind or your body, have to change in order to support this new path that you're on. So this could be like you're closing out a cycle of eating a certain way. Maybe you're closing out a cycle of waking up a certain way and at a certain time, or doing things in your day-to-day that have not been conducive to this new area of spirituality that you're moving into. And this lunar eclipse is going to show you, if you don't already see it, it's going to be an illumination, a culmination, and then ultimately a release in order to step into a bigger aspect of this part of your chart, because this is a theme that we're working with until 2027, when we have our last eclipse in your 6th and 12th house. So you're starting to see kind of maybe where the path needs to go, and maybe start working towards it by releasing an aspect of your work or your health, your daily responsibilities, things like that. The empowerment card I got for you guys is the adventure of life. I embrace the adventure of my life. Today I am courageous enough to try something difficult to achieve my goals. You know, the 6th house is also the joy of Mars, because the 6th house tells us we need to work really hard towards something. And that's kind of the service part of it, is that what do I want to be in service of? And it's interesting because you guys are like, something like manifestation could be really helpful for you guys right now, and understanding this dichotomy between like working really hard and surrendering is going to be really big for you guys to achieve your goals, because it says, I embrace the adventure of my life. Yes, you are on an adventure with 12th house indicated so strongly. You are definitely on some sort of adventure right now, and you are going, and it's like I've talked about before, it's like the path is kind of unknown. You feel this call towards it, but you don't really know where it's trying to take you. But it says, I am courageous enough to try something difficult to achieve my goals. I mean, Aries are quite courageous people, and maybe that's what you're having to draw upon to recognize that in order to, you know, surrender, the 12th house stuff that we talk about, like surrendering, letting go, is actually takes work. It's not passive, it's quite active. So it's an interesting dichotomy that you're seeing here, is like, working hard towards your goals and surrendering and seeing just that the qualities of these two things and what you need to move forward, right? Because there's some sort of a balance that's required. Maybe you're working too hard. Maybe you're not working hard enough. And this idea about working hard, like, I feel it gets kind of muddled nowadays. Well, that's why like manifestation and things like that would be really helpful for you to even just like look into and understand these different universal laws more, because work can be fun. You know, like when we say working hard, it kind of has this like, oh, I gotta work hard. But like if you're moving towards something that you absolutely love, it's not going to feel difficult. You're gonna have to put in the effort, but it's gonna feel good. You're gonna want to do it. And this is ultimately what the sixth house wants us to see, is that you don't have to hate what you do. You can actually love what you do and have that be your work. And maybe this is the kind of realization that you guys are having around this time. So Aries, let me know how this resonates for you guys. I'll see you next time. So for Taurus and Taurus risings, this is happening for you guys. This lunar eclipse is happening in your fifth house of creativity, love, romance, pleasure, entertainment, having a childlike joy. So a lot of what I talked about in the beginning and this Sabian symbol of 24 degrees Virgo might apply to you guys. So make sure you listen to that if you haven't. But ultimately, something around those themes is coming to a close. Some sort of dynamic or some sort of actual physical, tangible situation regarding those things. Maybe a creative project, maybe a romantic relationship could be coming to a close, but it could also be regarding the dynamic as well. So just keep that in mind. Right now, Venus is retrograde, which is your guys' ruling planet. So until April 12th, you guys are really going in. You guys are really going inward and trying to figure out, you know, what it is that you value in all aspects of your life, in yourself, in your relationships, because it's, you know, you're ruled by Venus. I talked about that more in my Venus retrograde video, but regarding this, it could be some sort of a creative project too that's coming to some sort of a fulfillment, or you're recognizing something about a creative project right now, because full moons can be times of illumination, having this insight and understanding. So you could be having a realization around those things, or something is coming to a close, and you're recognizing that in order for you to step it up and go to the next level in this part of your chart regarding creativity, regarding making art, regarding love and romance and pleasure and enjoying life and having this like exuberance to you and how you see life, is going to require that you release something. Something is coming to an end. And if you don't see it now, it's going to be very clear to you by, I say 2 weeks after this eclipse, because eclipses are very strong. We can feel its effects 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after. Yeah, something around this is you're recognizing you're going to have to release an old idea of something, an old way of being in some way, in order to step into this new sense of self-expression. Because that's what the fifth house is also really about. It's about self-expression, right? We talk about the first house being the identity, which for you guys is going through a lot too, just because you're ruled by Venus and it's retrograde. But the first and the fifth house tell us a lot about our dharma, right? And they also tell us about how we express ourselves in the world. So for you, this is going under a major revision, how you want other people to see you because of how you choose to express yourself. And that could be some sort of creative expression for you as well. Let's see what empowerment card I have for you guys. Wow, this is very fifth house coded. Soul art. I'm a vibrant creator. I express my unique gifts openly with confidence. Every choice I make is an act of creation, inspired by my curious spirit. My life is an art piece painted with the energy of my creativity. Oh my gosh, that's 1000%. Not just the fifth house, which is about creativity, but also Venus, your ruler, being retrograde, and Venus is a very creative planet. So both of these are saying like there's something being birthed inside of you. You could literally be pregnant or wanting to be getting pregnant or something like that, but it could also just be birthing life into your own life and birthing a creative project or a new way of being in love and relationships. But what I love here, it says, Every choice I make is an act of creation inspired by my curious spirit. So in the first part of the video, I talked about how I got the Magician card for the tarot. So that really, like, every choice I make is an act of creation is very much about, like, the Magician card. But it says inspired by my curious spirit, which once again goes to the first part of the video that I talked about, having this like childlike wonder. And the fifth house is the house of that. So for you guys, this is coming through like, how can I look at the world right now through the eyes of a child, and seeing the possibilities and seeing all the wonder and the curiosity and all these different things that could possibly come to be, and not become limited and hardened by my trauma or the things that I've been through. Because I think for you guys, and I've said this before, I think for you guys, this has to do about finding the right community for you, because all the stuff that's happening in your 11th house. But the thing is if you're not expressing yourself in a way that feels good to you, then you're not going to attract the right people. You're not going to attract the right community. So for you guys, there's this polarity of like expression and community, me and everybody else. How do I fit into these groups, and how do I want these groups to fit into my life? These are big things for you guys. So Taurus, let me know how this resonates for you guys, and I will see you guys next time. My Gemini sun, moon, and rising. For you guys, this is happening in your 4th house. So you're one of the ones that are going to be more impacted by this, especially if you have anything around 22 to 24 degrees of Gemini or any of the other mutable signs, because the 4th house is an angular house. So when this lunar eclipse comes, something is coming to a culmination. Something is completing a dynamic, a situation regarding home, family, your internal emotional world. These are the things that are likely to happen. So for some of you guys, and the effects of this can be felt for like 2 weeks before and after, so it doesn't have to be right on this date. Because it's a lunar eclipse, it has a wider range. Usually full and new moons, I give like 4 days on either side. But with this, it's going to be like 2 weeks. You could be culminating some sort of a move. You could be culminating some sort of a living situation that was started, or the idea was sprung back in September of last year. It doesn't have to, but generally these are cycles that we see. And now something it has changed or is changing. It's culminated. And you realize that in order for you to move forward into the next state of being in this part of your chart, you're going to have to release an old way of being, right? And so that can happen a lot when we make big decisions, or when something comes to a culmination. We have to realize that in embracing this new thing, we have to let go of something. So this could be moving, right? Very clearly, because it's a 4th house. This could be someone's living situation changing. So people moving in, people moving out, situations within your family, your home. This could also be a relationship with your parents. So specifically, a lot of times it's the mother, but you've got all this stuff happening in your 10th house. So it is also about, could be either of the parents. So yeah, things happening within the family life as well. But the 4th house is also really a deeply emotional place. So things within you are changing. And I think that this is a lot of what's fueling this massive desire to be out in the world and creating the jobs and the opportunities that feel aligned to you with your 10th house, is because there are deep changes that are happening within. They're catapulting you into a different way of being out in the world. So this is kind of a culmination of that you've been able to kind of cultivate this like courage to do what you've been wanting to do for several months. And maybe now you're kind of sitting in the reward of that. And it could also be some sort of a realization about your home life. It could be some sort of a realization around your family life, the family dynamics, and your deep, you could really have like a very eye-opening emotional experience around this time, because this is such an emotional part of your house. Now let's see, or emotional part of your chart. Okay. Yeah. Wow. This is the empowerment card I got for you guys. That seems very fitting. The mountaintop ascent. Though the way is steep and winding, I journey up the mountain. I find strength in knowing that others have reached the summit before me. I ascend for myself and on behalf of those who come after me. What I love about this is that he's climbing a mountain, and you guys have all this stuff happening in your 10th house of Capricorn, the mountain goat. right? So it's climbing the ladder to success. And this is very emphasized for you guys. But what I think this full moon is going to really show you guys is the importance of making sure that you're not neglecting the more internal and private world as well. Because obviously when you've got so much stuff happening in your 10th house, you do have the South Node in your 4th, along with the moon, of course, but long-term influence of the South Node. Make sure that there is some sort of a balance. Maybe there is a call during this lunar eclipse that there needs to be more attention in those 4th house realms, and that make sure that you're not climbing at the expense of your home life, of your internal stability, of your emotional stability, of your family life. And this is what I think the realization could be about as well, because I think most Gemini people are feeling the call towards climbing the mountain. And so this is just an invitation to like also look down and make sure that the foundation, the stability of this, what you're building, is really, really good. Let me know how that resonates for you guys. I'll see you guys next time. For my Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising, for you guys, this is happening in your 3rd house. Your 3rd house of siblings, neighbors, cousins, your immediate surroundings, so the people that are around you day to day, your daily trips that you make, so going to work, going to the grocery store, things are kind of part of your habits day to day. This is also the house of learning skills, of our mindset, communication, writing. So for you guys, it could be a lot of things, because the immediate environment that we're talking about, there's some sort of culmination there that began back in September of last year, or around September of last year, now is getting completed in some way. You're seeing the fruition of it. But the immediate surroundings is everything in our lives, right? Like, I think the 3rd house is really underrated in that way, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's a 3rd house, it's just thinking and communication and mindset. And it's like, well, how much of our lives are governed by our mindset and the way we communicate to others and our immediate surroundings? A lot, right? So this could be a big change for you guys. You know, like, it could be a completely different a new way of looking at life, a completely new way of understanding reality, and maybe even a new philosophical framework, because you guys have all this stuff happening in your 9th house. But regardless, something began back in September around those themes and is now coming to an end. And you may be realizing that to some extent, you have to let go of something that you have held sacred or near to you. This could be a thought, this could be a mindset, this could be a philosophy, this could be a religion, this could be a familiar environment. So maybe some of you guys are moving even. A lot of times with the 3rd house, it's generally not moving like super far away, but because you've got the 9th house indicated so strongly right now, which is long distance travel, it could be something like that. But honestly, with the 3rd and 6th, or 3rd and 9th, I honestly see more of a desire to explore the world more. So maybe you're recognizing that in order for you to be able to explore the world more, you're going to have to make some certain sacrifices in your day-to-day in order to learn, go back to school, in order to travel more. Maybe this means that, you know, you're going to have to change certain things in your immediate environment. So like the way you spend money, and, you know, Venus is also going retrograde right now in your 10th house. So we're reevaluating our desires, right? And kind of what is important to us and our values. But maybe this has something to do for you guys, with you guys making this big change in your life and realizing that, yeah, if I want to grow and expand, I've got to shed certain beliefs, certain mindsets, certain, some of you guys could even be like, you know, getting rid of social media or cleaning out your social media, because you're realizing that it is not helping you get to where you want to go in this moment. Because the 3rd house can also rule that as well. Some sort of a writing project. I'm a progressed Cancer rising, Cancer sun, and I just finished a writing course. So that could also be some sort of a course is closing out for you guys. But yeah, I think you're moving into a new, I will just say, when I had the South Node in my 3rd house, which was last year, well, yeah, when the nodes were in Libra and Aries, it was very impactful for my life, because like I said, the immediate environment is so much of our lives. So there you go. Let's see what we have for your empowerment card. Happy heart. I have a happy heart. Today will be full of joyful moments waiting for me to discover. My gratitude overflows from my inner self to those around me. Wow, this is really interesting because I think this is alluding to the mindset shifts that may be necessary for you or that you have made over the last 6 months with this moon cycle regarding how you think about the world, regarding how you speak to others, your thoughts internally as well, how you speak to yourself. And maybe this new philosophical outlook that you've gotten is a much more optimistic one. I know that having Mars in your first house has taught you a lot about you and your boundaries around who you are. And so maybe you're now finally in a space where this is not only becoming this like internal struggle to figure out your boundaries, but the thing about boundaries is we often look at it as like this negative thing because it's hard and we don't really learn about them at a young age, and we got to learn them as adults, and then now our relationships have to change. But actually, boundaries enhance the quality of our relationships. So for you guys, this could be this understanding that and this embodiment now that you are able to share your happy heart with everyone around you because you have put the necessary borders around your heart that allow you to see what's me and what's other people and how do we come together and how do we separate, and rather than just getting so involved in other people's things that maybe aren't even yours and then getting lost, and then that creates unnecessary emotional turbulence in you because it's not your stuff to carry, but you've been carrying it because you're a Cancer rising and you're a nurturer and you're a caretaker, or Cancer sun or Cancer moon. So I think this is actually quite big for you guys. So Cancers, let me know how this resonates for you. I'll see you guys next time. Leo, sun, moon, and rising. This for you guys is happening in your second house. Your second house of money, value, finances, your self-worth. The second house is also what we put in our mouth, so like the kind of food we eat. It is ruled by Taurus, so sometimes it is our voice as well. Your material possessions. So the values can be a lot of things. They can be internal values or external values. So external values meaning like how you spend your money, what kind of things you own. And the internal values are values about yourself that you like or you don't like, or you use or you don't use, or you see or you don't see. So, I mean, I have so many stories to tell you guys about this one, but one of the most interesting things is like I've started bringing in more of my Vedic knowledge, which is like Indian astrology. You have to be careful with these things, but because it's a different system. But some of the things I've just been noticing are more accurate, like how I talked about this being the voice. And last October, I wanted to start voice lessons. And I didn't because I had so many other things going on. And on the day of this eclipse, I'm having my first voice lesson. So there's that. But yeah, so something for you guys regarding these second house things is coming to a culmination. So a fruition, you're seeing the result of it. And it could be that in some ways there is a purification happening in this part of your chart. So purification means release, right, of the things that are no longer serving you. This could be for you guys a way of making money. This could be a job. This could be a side hustle, a business that is maybe you're recognizing kind of just like fell flat. Or it could be your main job that you're realizing is falling flat and you want to pursue something else. Because for you guys, you have all this stuff happening in your 8th house. And I don't know about other Leo risings, but I've been contemplating death a lot. Which is like cool. But that is the house of transformation and death and dying. And the way I see this for you guys is you guys are really entering this like very transformative time. Until really 2027 when we stop having eclipses, but really until the nodes are out of this part of your chart. And that's going to be until 2026, July 2026. You are entering this like transformative, you are deeply changing at a very core level. And as with the other water house, the 12th house, and which you have Mars in right now, so both of these houses are indicated for you, you are having to embrace the unknown, right? All the fire signs are going through this, where they really have to enter the watery depths of the unknown, of transformation, of not knowing what lies ahead and taking the leap. But the 8th house also gives us this like scorpionic courage to face it in ways that maybe we wouldn't have wanted to face it before. So for you guys, this feels like a very mystical time, a very mystical experience. The 8th house is the house of the occult. It's a house of shared intimacy as well, and psychology and psyche and healing. So maybe in your healing process, you've realized that there are ways of making money, ways of spending money that are no longer in alignment with you, and you have to let them go. And I think you're going to see during this time, like, how much on the balance scale am I leaning towards this transformation and thinking about death all day, and making sure that my reality is rooted in the transformations that are happening. So whatever's happening in your 8th house, the 2nd house is now making sure, like, what is the balance here? Are you actually integrating the transformations into your day-to-day? And for you guys, it's, I think, around your resources, money, how you spend it, how you make it. And that's going to be really big for you guys. But at the core of this, like I said, is your self-esteem. It's your self-worth. And what you value externally is a representation of what you value internally, right? So when we kind of get deeper and deeper, we realize that it starts always internally. Let's see what card we have for you guys, empowerment card. I love this because this is kind of what I was picking up on with the 12th and 8th house, sacred journey. I am a brave explorer on a sacred journey. I do not let the expectations of others decide my future. I boldly explore my world to discover destiny. I look to the constellations of my heart to steer me. I love that it says, I do not let the expectations of others decide my future, because one of the things that Leos, a lot of people may not know about Leo people, is that they are actually very conscientious of what people whom they love think about them. And so a lot of times we do let the expectations of others decide our future, because we tend to want to please, right? Like, it's the sun, and it's like, yeah, we shine brightly and we're confident, we want to go our own direction. But we also have this part of us that wants that appreciation, and we don't want to like stand out in too weird of a way, right? Like Aquarius is just like, I'm here, I'm weird, you know? And we are kind of more socially aware in a sense. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just that we don't want those expectations to take over our lives. That's when we really have to invoke that courage that I was talking about, and that sun that's shining brightly, that's going through hell literally right now. It's going through the 8th house in the underworld. So you're probably not feeling like this like sense of like vibrant self out in the world, and you're finding more of that vibrancy within the sacred journey, right? What do I value in my life? How do I want that to show up out in the world? And not let the expectations of others. You explore your world to discover your destiny. That's what you're doing right now. So Leos, let me know how this resonates for you guys. I'll see you next time. Virgos, the start of the show. Virgo, sun, moon, and rising. If you have anything around 22 to 24 degrees of Virgo specifically, you're definitely feeling this, okay? I don't care what you say. And you could be feeling this up to, because it's a lunar eclipse, it could be 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after. But this is for you guys regarding you. It's your sense of self, your identity, who you are, your appearance, especially if you're a Virgo rising. How you show up in the world, who you identify as, the things that you say you are in the world, your lens, your perception of the world, the attitude that you have around things that are going on in your life is changing. It is going through a massive change with the South Node in your first house. This lunar eclipse is highlighting that, and it's bringing some sort of a culmination from back in September. So I want you to think about how your sense of identity, your attitude towards the world, your perception, and for Virgo rising specifically, your appearance and how you physically show up in the world, to a lesser extent, Virgo sun and moon. How has that changed? How is that being purified right now, right? You guys are being asked to release expectations, to let go of what you believe you need to be and what you believe that you've been that needs to continue. It does not. Because you get to choose. You are the creator, right? In the beginning of the video. And of course, I highly recommend you guys listen to the first part of the video if you haven't, because it's going to apply a lot. And I talk a lot about the Virgo archetype in the beginning part of the video. But for you guys, like, it's about creating that magician card in tarot. It's about creation. And but it's happening through loss. You're losing the parts of yourselves, the older parts of yourselves that are no longer a part of this path that you're walking. And so you may be having a culmination, right? Something began back in September. Maybe there was a new attitude that you wanted to take, or you look back to September and you think about how you were thinking about certain situations and how much growth you've had since then. And you're looking at those same situations in a very different light because you have changed. Your identity, your ego has changed. And it could also be that you are releasing a part of yourself. So anything that you identify with. And for you guys, it could be a lot to do with relationships because you've got this conglomerate, this stellium happening in your 7th house that's opposing this. So one thing that I also want to say too, is that make sure that during this time, you might be illuminated to something regarding the balance between you and your partnerships. So like the way that I see this happening for a lot of you guys is that you're seeing like, am I giving too much in relationships and am I losing my sense of self? Or am I not giving enough and am I thinking too much about myself and not really giving the other people in my life the compassion and the attention that they need? And this is kind of the dynamic here, right? Because that's why I talk so much about like relationships in them and how you identify within them. Like, oh, I am always the victim. I am always the one who has to do this. Okay, when we can shift those identities, then we can reach a whole new level of exploration and curiosity and openness of possibilities within our relationships. They can truly take totally different quantum paths, right? When we choose to experience our world and ourselves differently. Let's see what card I have for you. Oh my gosh, yeah, internal garden. This is the empowerment card. It's so interesting because these aren't even, technically divination, I guess. I don't know. But they are always so on point for me. I take time to tend my internal garden. I spend intentional time in meditation and self-care to cultivate my soul. Within myself, I grow the fruit I eat for sustenance. Wow, yeah, I spend intentional time in meditation and self-care. I talked about in the beginning of the video about the Virgo archetype being linked to the tarot card of the Hermit, which is introspection and going within. But it says, I spend intentional time in meditation and self-care. And I think when you have the South Node, which is very kind of similar to that Virgo archetype of stripping and refining and releasing, when you have it going through your first house or on your sun or your moon or, any stelliums that you have, you're going to be pushed into a time period where this meditation and spirituality become very emphasized simply because you are in a period of loss and release. And therefore you find the essence of things, which tends to be more spiritual in nature, right? The essence of life, this emotional, this human and emotional experience tends to be quite internal in nature, right? And you're recognizing that and you're cultivating your soul through this contemplation, meditation, time alone, and taking that intentional time to tend to your internal garden so that you can show up in the way that you want to show up for yourself and within your relationships. And this will change your relationships. All right, let me know how that resonates for you guys. I'll see you guys next time. For my Libra sun, moon, and rising, for you guys, this is happening in your 12th house, the 12th house of solitude, loss, grief, closure, ending of cycles, meditation, overseas travel as well. So this could be something around overseas travel, and that coming to a culmination from something around September of last year. But on a deeper level, this is a very spiritual time for you because not only are you having a full moon, which is about release, and it's a south node full moon, south node eclipse, right? And the eclipse is also about release, and so are south node eclipses specifically. And then it's happening in your 12th house of surrender, of letting go. And it's opposing your 6th house. And you've got a lot of stuff in your 6th house. Okay, here's the thing. I feel like a lot of you guys are feeling some sort of way around work, health, these 6th house things. Work, health, responsibility, duty, service. And this full moon eclipse is pretty much asking for some level of balance here and saying, with these work, health, 6th house issues that you're having, are you then pulling back into this 12th house, your subconscious, your self-undoing, the unknown, surrendering to all that there is? Is that a part of how you're dealing with these situations? I feel like a lot of you guys are walking into and embracing new journeys regarding your 6th house things, for sure. And during this time, when we have the nodes in your 6th and 12th house, and we have eclipses here till 2027, are you also allowing yourself to walk into the unknown when it comes to where you're headed in your day-to-day life, where you're headed in your work, where you're headed in your health, illness, with pets? It's almost like the universe is giving you an opportunity to release any subconscious patterns, any fears and closure and grief that you need to have in order to fully step into this new part of your life in which your work represents who you truly are. Now, your ruler is retrograde during this time, so a lot of things are being reevaluated. I have a video about that if you haven't already watched it. But when it's your ruler, it gets extra emphasis, right? And Venus only goes retrograde every 18 months, so it's not super common. And right now, you're in this period where you get this downtime to reevaluate a lot of conflicts that are coming up in your life, whether that's in work with this Pisces house stuff or in relationships or whatever. It's asking for you to tolerate a certain level of disharmony in order to get to like the true nature of something. Because ultimately, if we think about it, if something with your 6th house is unsatisfactory, well, it's looking to the 12th, right? I talked about in the beginning of the video about how these are pairs of houses rather than just singular houses, in my opinion. And so when the 6th house is indicated, so whether that's good or bad, I have a feeling that most Libras are going through some changes with their work environment, but not all of you guys are. Obviously, this is very general, so some of you guys may be liking it. But even if you're in a job and you like it, something is asking for evolution here, right? Because you got the North Node here. But in order to evolve there, this full moon lunar eclipse is saying, what do we need to release from our subconscious that is keeping us from having the work life, the health that we desire? Because the answers are in the 12th house, and it's a shedding, a releasing, a letting go that needs to happen in order for you to get those answers and to refine, right? Virgo wants to refine your subconscious thoughts and mind so that your conscious reality becomes more aligned with what you desire. There's also going to be, if it's not a culmination, it can also be an illumination, or it could be both, right? So around this time, you could be being illuminated to something, having some sort of a understanding, right? Because it's the moon that's being illuminated. So some sort of a emotional insight, emotional understanding around your work situation. And this is for 2 weeks before and after. So maybe you've already had it, maybe you haven't had it yet, and you're going to have it after. Because eclipses make them extra strong, make the full moons extra strong, and they last much longer. So it could be an illumination, and it also could be a culmination, like I said, and in that culminating essence, you realize that this is actually not what you want anyways. And that will allow you to move more freely into the unknown that awaits. And listen, I know this is not easy territory for you guys unless you have other placements that would indicate your desire to release logic so much and kind of surrender to the wateriness of Pisces. So I get it. And of course, you guys get the empowerment card of River Path, because I'm talking about water. Yeah, see, okay. I am adaptable like a flowing river. There are 100 ways I can reach any goal. I move smoothly around obstacles to find my path. My hope flows eternal like a river. Yeah, I mean, you guys are cardinal, so adaptability is not generally a core essence of the Libra archetype. But this time right now is really asking for that for a number of reasons. Not just because this said it, right? This points it out to us, which is really great. And it emphasizes that this is a part of what is going on in your life right now, and desire for you to be adaptable. And I love that it says there are 100 ways I can reach any goal, because what this is kind of picking up on, in my opinion, is the 12th house indication that, you know, if we think of quantum reality, there are millions of possibilities. But if we think about the tangible, which is the 6th house, we can't always see that. And the 12th house asks us to look beyond what we are able to see. And knowing that if you seem like you're not going towards the goal that you want because things aren't going your way, knowing that there are many other ways that you can reach this goal. It's just that right now, maybe the way that you're trying isn't working, and that maybe this goal just isn't even correct. And maybe there's a bigger overarching goal that you can still, you know, achieve, but it's not going to be down this route that you're currently on. So widen your scope a little bit. Like, what is the big goal that you want with your work, with how you want to be of service to the world? And even if this is for you guys showing illness, even with that, like, what is the big goal here? The overarching goal, rather than like what's in front of you right now. And I think that'll be very helpful, and to be adaptable and taking things as they come and flowing with them, as the card suggests. So let me know how that resonates for you guys. I'll see you next time. For my Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising, let's get your chart up here. There we go. This lunar eclipse is happening in your guys' 11th house. The 11th house is our house of hopes, dreams, wishes, communities, social networks, groups of friends. It can also be the internet at times, technology. When we have an eclipse here, it could be some sort of a culmination, and this also rules like organizations that you belong to. We have something that began back in September, possibly, that is coming to a culmination. There's some sort of fruition around that, around those themes, getting the right groups, getting the right support, getting the right friends. But ultimately, when we have a lunar eclipse here, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, because of the qualities inherent in this lunation, there is also a sense of letting go, of refinement, rather than just culmination and then like adding more. There's a sense that in order to move forward, we need to release something. So this could be actual organizations that you belong to. This could be actual friends. This could be actual groups that you belong to. But it could also be the dynamics that you have within these groups. So maybe you're always taking kind of a backseat position, and this is asking for more leadership because you've got this stellium in your 5th house of self-expression, and this is a Leo house, and Leo likes to be, you know, in front of people. Generally, right? The archetype of Leo does. And the 5th house is about self-expression and creativity and love and romance. So I could also see this for you guys, that's one iteration of what could be happening, is that there's dynamics changing within the groups that you have, and a lot of that has to do with the way that you are choosing to express yourself now versus how you were doing so before. So it could also be the opposite, right? Like you could always be wanting to be front and center of everything, and now you're realizing that you need to let other people kind of take the reins and have more attention, and the spotlight doesn't have to be quite on you as much. I could also see this as being something regarding or requiring a level of balance, because when we have full moons, it's showcasing this polarity of oppositions, right? So for you guys, it's in the 5th and 11th. And I wonder if this is calling to some sort of a balance that needs to be struck regarding your kind of like self-involvement. Because when you have planets in the 5th house, it inevitably just puts attention on you and your needs and what you want, because the 5th house, like I said, is your dharma, is part of your dharma. This lunation is asking for you to recognize that yes, it is important for you to focus on you. That's where the North Node is, but don't forget that you are also learning how to integrate this new sense of self into the greater community, into a wider community. And if there are really big imbalances there, this full moon can bring that to light for you, making it apparent that this journey that you're going on with North Node in the 5th is going to require you to maintain some level of balance between these two houses. So, I mean, I see this for Scorpios a really great time to show up in a different way that's maybe more confident or self-assured in yourself. And that in turn will be affecting and reflecting the kinds of people that you attract to you. Like if you're someone who's a creative Scorpio, and by creativity, it's not just art and as in painting and, you know, the physical art forms, or if you're a creative thinker, or if you have any sort of creative project that you want to put out in the world, this would be a really great time to focus your attention on doing so on a public platform, or doing so in a way that shares your interests with others so that people can find you. Because you are going through a metamorphosis of the groups that you have around you. And you want to find the right people. So like obviously Taurus and you guys have similar themes, but for Taurus, their emphasis is on the 11th house, whereas yours is on the 5th house. So it's about your self-expression and how you want to show up. But I'm just saying, maybe can you make that a little bit more public? Like post in your Facebook, post in, you know, on Instagram or YouTube or something, because people need to see you in order to find you and be a part of your tribe. Let's see what the empowerment card has to say for you. Sacredness of mystery. Why do I feel like I got this for you guys recently? I don't know. Let me know if I did. I am at peace with uncertainty. I trust the benevolence of God and the abundance of the universe. I embrace the sacredness of mystery. I have the knowledge I need today, and that is enough. You have Venus and Mercury in your 6th house, which Venus is a tough time there. Venus doesn't love being in the 6th house. Mercury as well. And it's a house of conflict. So, and for you guys, your 7th house ruler is in your 6th house right now. So that could be conflict in relationships, health issues due to relationship issues right now. But really, I can see it more as conflict. And it's asking you guys to really embrace the chaos, which I know that you guys aren't completely unfamiliar with, being a Scorpio rising, sun, or moon. Embrace the chaos if that's happening in your relationships, and focus more. And the 5th house is how you show love and romance. So that could be evolving as well, which is a part of, you know, the Pisces stellium in your 5th house. But I feel like for you guys, it's really just about embracing the chaos and seeing the sacredness in this chaos that's forming right now, that is representing the unknown that's coming to you. Yeah, because I'm seeing that. I feel like that's a theme that's been coming up for you guys a lot, that there's like this state of limbo with a lot of things. You're being called to not just survive it, but like thrive in it as well. Scorpios can get very much stuck sometimes in surviving because they feel like they have to deal with so much emotional turbulence often. And this is kind of like, this is the 5th house to me. It's about self-expression, yes, but it's about pleasure and joy. And so like, are you thriving in the midst of unknowns, or are you just getting by? Because that's kind of like what you've trained yourself to do since maybe that's been a mode for you a lot throughout your life. So let me know, Scorpios, let me know how that resonates. I'll see you guys next time. All right, so for my Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising, we've got this full moon lunar eclipse happening in your 10th house. Well, this is very interesting. The 10th house is about career, achievements, father. You've got the 4th house indicated too, so parents, father, mother, authority figures. It's about your public status and your reputation and your legacy. And it's one of the work houses, so it has a lot to do with our career and our overarching career rather than like the job that we're currently in, but like, yeah, what our legacy is, what we want to build here. And for you guys, there is a stripping away of something that's happening over the next 2 years. But this lunar eclipse is really beginning this process for you guys with the South Node eclipse being indicated here. There is a refinement that's happening in your career. So this doesn't have to be that you're completely losing a career and you're moving into a new one, although it can be for you. It can also just be that you're letting go of certain dynamics that you have in your public life or in your career and your legacy in order to better refine and release the aspects of that part of your life that are not getting you to where you'd like to go. The thing is, the theme for you guys recently has really been on the 4th house of home life, inner emotional foundations, and of course the mother and your living situation, things like that. So this is where a lot of emphasis has been, and this full moon in particular is showing, hey, like what was happening in September of last year, something could be culminating or releasing, or culminating or coming to a fruition around that. So there could be some sense of accomplishment around something, which is really amazing, but it can also be a sense of accomplishment that makes you realize that something has to change. Because either the accomplishment is not super fulfilling, or you're just recognizing that like you are changing, or this accomplishment that you have opens your eyes to a new way of being in your career, a new way of being in the public status. And so that's what creates you having to refine and release the aspects of your career and the dynamics within your career and legacy that you are having to release during this full moon. And it's this full moon, because it's a lunar eclipse, I would say for 2 weeks before and after it's active. And so this could be happening around this. But also could be acting like a balancing beam in order to show you like, hey, I know you've got all this stuff happening in your 4th house. A lot of what you've been focusing on has been the 4th house recently. And this is just reminding you that, hey, this 10th house is an area of your life that's being worked on right now. So how are we assimilating those changes that are happening internally and to externally? Because ultimately the growth is happening more so, the changes are happening more so in your 4th. But it's so interesting when we have the South Node in the 10th or anywhere really, we see this natural change happen where the South Node is due to the changes that we're making with the North Node. So this is just highlighting so that you can see how those 4th house changes that you've been making are now starting to affect how you want to be perceived in the world. Now, a lot of times during this, anytime our 4th and 10th house are indicated, it can be like an announcement of something that's happening. So getting married, getting divorced, moving, quitting a job, starting a new job, some sort of a public announcement can happen around this time. And it may be even like shocking or out of nowhere or something like that. So just being mindful of that. Let's see what the empowerment card says for you guys. This seems very 10th house coded. Pillar of leadership. I am a leader. I speak in confidence with authority. I lead by example. I am a pillar of character that holds the weight of responsibility for my people. Wow, that's amazing. Authority, right? The 10th house is a house of authority. But also, what this made me think of actually immediately was that the 10th house is a very public house. When things happen in the 10th house for us, it's saying like, I lead by example. I'm a pillar of character. And so the changes that you've been doing internally, are they showing in your public persona? Now, whether that public persona is online or at work or at the greater world, in front of the greater world at large, like how you show up everywhere you go. Are you leading with the characteristics that you admire? because I feel like you've been doing a lot of like emotional soul searching with the fourth house indication, like I said, for a while. And maybe this is now coming up to ask you to integrate that into your public persona in some way. How are you leading by example and showing people? And this is actually something that Sagittarius does really well, leading by example, right? Sagittarius and Gemini can both be really great teachers, but they do so in kind of different ways. And once again, they're opposition, so they take from one another, but Gemini tends to just be very much about the like mind, and this is what I'm telling you to do. This is what I know is correct. And Sagittarius will also do that, but then there's a sense of they are able to embody their principles. And so it's just checking in to see, are you embodying your principles that you value, right? Venus is retrograde, so we're all dealing with values and desires at this point. Yeah, this is wonderful. All right, Sagittarius, let me know how that resonates for you guys. I'll see you guys next time. For my Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Rising, you guys have this lunar eclipse happening in your 9th house. The 9th house is a big house. It's a house of higher education, law, and legalities. It's a house of long distance travel, which can be overseas, but doesn't have to be. It's a house of where you find wisdom, truth, understanding of purpose in the world. It's one of the Dharma houses. It's a house of mentors as well, and teaching and publishing. So as you can tell, there's a lot that can encompass this and what's been going on. And you can look to September of last year as a clue as to what began regarding those themes around that time. This is also like religion, expanding our horizons through learning and knowledge or experiencing new cultures, publication, faith in life. So with this full moon lunar eclipse, there are a few things that are happening around those themes. Is a balancing happening with the 3rd house, which is where you have all this Pisces stuff. You've got a opportunity for some sort of illuminating emotion because the full moon is being illuminated. And then there's a culmination, right? A fruition of something that began around September of last year regarding those themes. So maybe you wanted to travel, maybe you wanted to, and now you're doing it. Maybe you wanted to start a course and now you're starting it. Maybe you wanted to expand your horizons through learning and understanding the world in different ways, and now you're doing that. And there's also a release that's happening, right? Because in the beginning of this video, I talked about how so much of this lunar eclipse is asking you to shed the things that are no longer working. So for you, the things that are shedding over the next 2 years, starting with this lunar eclipse, are belief systems, ways of understanding the world, ways of how much you have faith in the world, where you find meaning and purpose in your life. These are the areas of your life that are shedding right now. In order to find their truest essence, right? To have Virgo refine this part of your chart and bring it to its greatest essence and its simplest essence. Now, what you've got going on in the 3rd house, though, with Pisces in your 3rd house, is that there's a lot of emphasis on your immediate surroundings, your day-to-day. Lots of changes could be happening with your neighbors, siblings, cousins. Your immediate environment could be feeling like there's a lot going on and there's a lot of changes happening over the next 1.5 years specifically, but really the next 2 years because of the eclipses. And the 9th house is asking you to remember this like bigger vision, right? The later houses in the birth chart show like overarching visions. And whenever I think of the 3rd house and the 9th house, I always think about how, like, are we seeing the forest for the trees? And not focusing so much on our day-to-day reality that we're missing the big picture. Because the 9th house is ruled by Sagittarius, and Sagittarius sees the bigger picture, right? It sees how everything is connecting to mean something. And so make sure that there is some balance there for you guys, that you're not just going through your day-to-day and not really connecting it to anything bigger, because ultimately what is happening is that there is something that is trying to grow within you. Like, yes, the North Node is in your 3rd house, so it is going to bring a lot of growth and evolution in your personal surroundings and changes and transformation. But the 9th house, whenever it gets illuminated like this with the South Node there, It's saying we need to make sure that we're not getting so caught up in like our day-to-day and our mind and our mindset, and also remember like our higher mind, our more spiritual mind, and give attention to those things as well. Yeah, so that's a balancing aspect that can happen during this time. So let's see what the empowerment card I have for you guys. Oh my goodness. I bird set free. The reason why I like this, and I didn't even read what it said yet, but bird set free makes me think of the 9th house a little bit, because it's like freedom, right? It's Sagittarius. The 9th house is ruled by Sagittarius. I am fearless and free. My past does not hold on to me. As I rest, my chains fall off. As I sit, oh my gosh, sorry. I just got chills. Okay. As I rest, I just got really emotional about this. I don't know why. Okay. As I rest, my chains fall off. As I sit, I soar. I am a bird set free. I just realized there are chains in this. Okay, I got really emotional because as I was reading it, I thought about how you guys have all this stuff happening in your 4th house and like reevaluation and changes happening in your home life, your living situation, or your internal world, right? Because you have Mercury and Venus going retrograde there. You know, Capricorn is ruled by the Devil card in tarot. And it makes me feel as though that you're like in this like resting phase, right? Because the 4th house is a house of rest. It's the deepest part of our chart. And it's a very quiet part of us. It's a part that not everyone has access to. Like, yeah, on a mundane level, it's our home and our living situation, our parents or our family. But on a deeper level, it's the deepest part of your chart. So it's the deepest part of who you are. And not many people get to see that. But there's something happening as you're resting there, as the focus is happening on the 3rd house, the environment, the living situation. The South Node in the 9th house is opening up freedom for you guys through whatever you're learning right now, whatever you're understanding about these shifts that are happening. And as you're doing this, as you're taking this time to kind of like pull back, which is not super Capricorn of you guys, right? I mean, Capricorn is a cardinal sign, and yes, it's an earth sign, but you guys like to pursue your goals. You guys like to go after what you want. Maybe you're feeling like you're not doing that, but it's saying, you know, you are fearless and free, but sometimes you have to rest to let the chains fall off. It's not always about moving forward. Sometimes when you rest, you can learn to soar. Yeah, I love this for you guys. Let me know how this resonates for you guys, Capricorn. I'll see you guys next time. For my Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising, this is happening for you guys in the 8th house. This lunar eclipse is happening in the 8th house. The 8th house is transformation. It's psychology. It's shared resources and finances. The give and take that we have in relationships, intimacy. This is a very deep house, and it can rule the occult as well. But a lot of times when we have major transits go through this house, it's a time of healing, and generally a time when we're drawn to psychology and the occult to get answers. I have cat hair. Apologize. It's everywhere. But on a mundane level, this can also look like some sort of fruition coming to shared financial resources. A lot of times when we have full moons, we can see in the 8th house, we can see like some sort of lump sum come to us, which is always nice, right? This is with the South Node though. So that the South Node is generally like a releasing and a letting go and a refining. So less so maybe, but possibly still for some of you guys, that may be what's happening. What I see this more as happening because you've got the stellium in your 2nd house, and we've talked about this quite a bit. I mean, yeah, and we're going to have even more planets in your 2nd house, because we're going to have Mercury and Pisces and Mercury and Venus move there as well. So this is a very big focal point for you guys right now, is the 2nd house, which is about your finances, your values, your self-esteem. This may have been an area of your life that you've been really focused on around what do I value? What do I want? What am I doing? What business am I doing? How am I making money? How am I spending money? This full moon serves as a possible balancing to make sure that you're not neglecting the other people who are supporting you during this time and who have been supporting you, especially since September of last year. If you started some sort of a new venture with others, or within your deep emotional partnerships, or some sort of a shared partnership, or with finances involved, or you started a transformational journey back in September when you had the new moon in this part of your chart around money, values, business. This could be coming to a culmination, and you could be seeing the fruits of your labor from that. But in seeing the fruits of your labor, I think that during this time, you guys are really seeing aspects of your psyche and how you relate to others in relationships, in deep emotional bonds. So not just any relationships, but in deep emotional bonds that don't fit the representation of yourself that you'd want out in the world. And there's been a major transformation, and there's going to continue to be a major transformation, because this is where you have the South Node until July 2026, and the eclipses till 2027 is in this axis, right? The second and the eighth house. Your collaboration with others in finance or in deep emotional bonds is going through massive changes. And this full moon is reminding you that you are not in this alone. That any changes that you're wanting to make in your life, in your money, values, resources, work, are you utilizing collaboration? Are you utilizing the people who want to support you? And I'm guilty of this as well. So, I'm saying this as I know that this is something I have to work on too. But so often we rob people from the ability to support us. Like we think, I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to ask people because it'll make me seem weak or whatever. And I don't want to impose on them. But so often, and I feel this way about people I love, when I find out that they didn't ask for help and they needed it, I'm always like, I would have loved to help you. Like, I love you. I would have loved to be there for you. So this is like opening you guys up in an emotional way over the next year and a half. And I think this full moon lunar eclipse is just asking you to take a look at those dynamics and see, like, are you relying on others too much? Right? Maybe that's a thing, which I don't really see with Aquarius, but it totally could be, right? Because you've got a whole birth chart. And maybe that needs to be refined. Or maybe what I was saying before, where you're not really you're not allowing like this merging to ever happen, right? Because Aquarius is so independent. And this South Node is asking you to look at themes of merging with others, whether that's financially or emotionally. And is it serving you? Is it serving you? You may also be illuminated to something around shared resources or within a deep emotional bond, because this is a full moon, which illuminates some sort of emotional understanding. And like I said, it could also be a culmination. So let's see what you have for your empowerment card. Strings of Destiny. It's so weird. I feel like maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in my head. Most of it is like early 2000s pop songs, I've realized. But beyond that, it's astrology. I don't know, whenever I listen to like radio stations that have early 2000 pop songs and rock songs too, like alternative rock, I know all the words. And I always tell my boyfriend, I'm like, this is why I can't remember anything, because all that's in here is music. But I feel like I got this card for you guys recently. I don't know, let me know. Strings of Destiny. I weave the strings of my own destiny. I imagine my future into reality. I attract wisdom, cultivate strength, and today I will take the next step in my journey. This makes me feel like, in a lot of ways, you guys are moving like step by step. I don't know why I felt that. Just because it says like, and today I will take the next step in my journey. I wonder if you guys are feeling this around like finances and work, because your second house is indicated here, and then you've got Mars in the 6th, like your work, and Mars like being in the 6th, so you're like, maybe you're working towards something but you don't really know where it's going to go yet, or you have an idea of like what you need to do but you don't see like the bigger vision right now. And this is just a reminder for you that with strength and wisdom, you can continue to take step by step and get to where you're meant to be right now. And that's all you need right now, is to have the wisdom and the courage and the strength to take it step by step and to see where this leads. All right, Aquarius, let me know how this resonates for you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Last and definitely not least, my Pisces sun, moon, and rising. This lunar eclipse is happening in your 7th house. So we've been talking a lot recently about how there's been a lot of emphasis in your 1st house, right? That's still there. You've got plenty of planets there. You're going to have more planets move in once Venus and Mercury go back into Pisces as well. So lots of emphasis still there, which is why I think this full moon is very important for you guys, because the full moon lunar eclipse can be a few things. It can be some sort of an illumination around your 7th house. So relationships, interpersonal dynamics, business partnerships, it's other people, one-on-one relationships, right? So it could be a culmination. So something happening within a partnership that is now coming to a completion that was started around September of last year. It could also be an understanding or a dynamic that you began, like you wanted to relate to others in a new way, and that seed was planted and now you're doing it. It could also be an illumination to your partnerships. It can also be an illumination to the dynamics within your partnerships and how you're showing up in those partnerships. And it can really act as a balance, right? If there's been a lot of emphasis on your path, your identity, what you're doing, your creativity, all these things, what's been going on with your relationships? How is that changing the way that you relate to other people and thereby the dynamics that you have in your interpersonal relationships? This full moon is asking you, every time, this south node is going to be lit up with this moon, it's going to be asking you to create this balance there, because it's going to be so easy for you guys to get really caught up in your path and what you're wanting to do and how you're expressing yourself. And these are important, but we don't want to risk our relationships in order to go down this path, because, if people have to go, they have to go, right? Because what I talked about in the beginning part of this video is that there is a release that is happening. Virgo is about refinement and, picking out what works and doesn't work. And the south node is release, and full moons are times for release. So there could definitely be, for you guys, relationships that you are having to let go of. But for most of you guys, it's probably going to be a little bit more subtle than that. And it's going to be more relationship dynamics. So release is definitely there. But, not everybody, probably, right? You still want to probably keep some people. So that's what I'm saying. It's the attention right now during this full moon eclipse and for the week surrounding it, right? Because it's supercharged full moon. It's asking to make sure that you also think about where you're going and how that affects the people that are in your life as well. That's going to be a theme for you guys. And I actually pulled 2 empowerment cards for you guys. So let's see here. Wait. Oh my gosh. Okay. That's crazy. Empowering relationships or friendships. I'm sorry. Whatever. Okay. Can't make this up. I select my relationships carefully and invest in them fully. I am the average of the people I spend my time with. See, this is making me feel like it's that refinement, right? Who are you spending your time with? Are they worthy of being in your life? I used to really reject this idea that you become the people that you surround yourself with. And as I've gone older, because I was always like, no, me. They don't affect me at all. And as I've gone older, I definitely have changed my mind on that. I think it's definitely more nuanced. And that they probably do affect a lot of what you do and who you are. And so selecting them carefully and investing in them fully. So this is a time for you to look at that dynamic. Are you investing in the wrong people, Or are you not investing enough in the right people? Who are the right people? Who are the wrong people? That's going to be an imperative part of your path over the next 2 years as you go on this like self realization journey and self-expression journey. The people you're taking with you or not are going to be a huge part of that. And the other one I got was Sands of Time. I am patient. I trust the timing of divinity. I act when the moment is ripe, not early, not late. I watch and wait as the sands of the hourglass fall, knowing each grain holds wisdom. I do not rush my destiny lest I forever lose the moment. Well, you know, Pluto being in your 12th house for the next 19 years is going to teach you about patience and surrender and trusting the timing of divinity. But also with all of this stuff in your sign and then Venus in Aries in your second and Mercury, it's like a lot of impetus to like go, you know? And I love that because I often feel like a lot of times Pisces, you know, doesn't feel that way. You guys spend a lot of time feeling into things and understanding things and gaining wisdom, and that's super important. But when it's time to go, you know, you're very intuitive. And so it's like, this is a time to go. And I feel like you guys can feel that. But it's just saying like with the North Node in your first house or on your sun or your moon, it can kind of create this, a little bit of impatience. Okay. A little bit of impatience. And this is just saying that like, yes, you're going to have the energy, but are you trying to grasp the energy, and not allow things to happen? Just make sure that you're not trying to push things too far. And ultimately, I just think that's a beautiful message, empowerment for you guys. Yeah, you can screenshot it if you like it. All right, let me know how this resonates for you guys, and I'll see you next time.